let's get back to Brandon Aiyuk. Um, I wanted to play just how long is this first cut from Richard Sherman?
I got to cut down to about 2 minutes and 40 seconds here.
Okay. Richard Sherman was asked about Aiyuk, and I watched the whole thing, which was several minutes.
10 minutes long.
Yeah, and it's not very flattering. But Richard Sherman seems to think he knows where all of this started between the 49ers and Aiyuk. And that's what we're going to play here. The first part of this where he says, I think I can explain why they hate each other or why he distrusts and started to go down the path of not liking his employer. Here was Richard Sherman.
Richard, what do you make of this whole Brandon Aiyuk situation?
It's unfortunate, but it didn't start there. It started at the Super Bowl. It probably started even before the Super Bowl. Receivers are very incredible, interesting, but sometimes, it's a fragility there in terms of, how you deal with the psychology of the receivers on your team and how to make everybody happy. And on a team like the San Francisco 49ers with an all-pro tight end, an offensive player of the year in the backfield, you had Deebo Samuel. It's hard, and Brandon Aiyuk. Only one football. It's hard to get the football to everybody at the same time. But Brandon Aiyuk was the highest targeted guy. He had 1,300 yards. He would tell you he probably could have dealt with 50 more targets and really been a top 5 receiver in the National Football League. That's what he believes. And I think that's what the San Francisco 49ers believed at the time. And what I believe happened was Brandon Aiyuk played well in the Super Bowl and created separation and felt like he was open a lot more than he got the ball. He felt like he individually could have impacted that game in a greater way and helped them win a Super Bowl, especially, even the play where Brock gets sacked at the end by Chris Jones because of a blown assignment on the offensive line. He was wide open, ran a great route. It would have been there. It would have been there whether you hit him or Juwan Jennings. Either way, they would have won that game. And I think as a player sometimes that eats at you. You're talking about a guy who watched our quarterback throw a Super Bowl away and you're just sitting there like, that it eats at you, and it eats at you for a long time. And so once you get to that point, you have to make a decision that offseason. You know what I mean? Is the bitterness and resentment and frustration going to eat at you to the point where you need to go somewhere else, where you need to play somewhere else? Or are you going to be able to flush it, deal with the trauma of it and be able to play football and help get your team back to where they were before? And I think that was hard for Brandon Aiyuk. I think the frustration, the bitterness, the anger, the resentment, all those feelings kind of festered that offseason. And then comes the contract. Then comes the trade rumors and everything that came with that situation. When you agree to the contract and you sign and you say, hey, $130 million, like I'm a 49er. At that point, you got to buy back in. At that point, you have to buy back in. And I don't think Brandon Aiyuk ever bought back in.
So the Super Bowl, maybe a little bit before, because he wasn't being targeted enough. If you're wondering, about his targets, in 2023, he was targeted 15 more times than any other receiver for the 49ers for the season. In the actual Super Bowl itself, Aiyuk had 3 receptions on 6 targets for 49 yards. McCaffrey was targeted more than anybody. Actually, Deebo was targeted more than Aiyuk was, and so was McCaffrey. Aiyuk had a really good postseason that year in 2023. He ended up with 20 catches in 3 playoff games for 149 yards. Aiyuk was really exceptional in 2023. We've already talked about, how good he was and the average yards per catch. The separation was ridiculous. The catch that he had in the NFC Championship game against Detroit was pretty much the game winner. He was just an elite level wide receiver in 2023, and he was good in 22, but 23 was really the take notice because I'm moving up the list of wide receivers, and hopefully I'm going to get paid like one of those guys. An excellent player. Look, I don't have any issue with players wanting the ball more. It's a position we've all gotten used to. as fans. That's a position where there's just a lot of diva and there's a lot of belief, and you want that belief. You want some of that ego that comes along with it. You want a guy that believes that he needs to be targeted more to win the Super Bowl. Understood. You can't let it throw you the way it did if Richard Sherman's right. You can't let one game or maybe a couple of games send you into a complete and utter anti-employer tizzy. Like, that's just there's thin skin, and then there's barely any skin. He literally, if that's the root cause of all this, not being targeted enough in the Super Bowl. They were in the Super Bowl, and by the way, I'm not saying that he's wrong. I mean, if you recall that game, Kansas City's defense was pretty good. Purdy in that game, was fine, but the Chiefs, I mean, Mahomes was outstanding in that Super Bowl. And Kyle really blew it by, the decision he made in overtime because of the new rules in overtime. It's one thing to be pissed off and even be on the bench during the game. We've seen that a million times. All right. It's not the best look. It's not the best teammate over there, in a Super Bowl game. And I don't remember any shots of him doing that. But if that really threw him into what ended up being almost a 2.5-year tailspin of hating his employer and having it manifest into very difficult contract negotiations where he was, way too public, and then into what it's become since, thin skin, way too thin-skinned, way too much of a baby. You combine that with the way he's behaved on social media, there is a real maturity issue that, again, it's not a disqualifier in the NFL. I mean, felonies aren't disqualifiers in the NFL, and he hasn't committed any of those. A misdemeanor, yes. We still don't know if he's been arrested or not. There was a report that he was going to be issued an arrest, or the arrest warrant was issued. We don't even know if he's been arrested. But this guy Richard Sherman's essentially saying this guy let this game and not being targeted enough result in what it's resulted in over the last 2.5 years. Look, the injury didn't help. And maybe some of the things the 49ers did during the injury didn't help. We had that guy, Grant Cohn, on. He said they tried to trade him weeks after the injury. That didn't sit well with him. It certainly sounds like that the relationship had started to fracture before the contract was given out. Grant Cohn had suggested that. He said there were real battles within the organization as to whether or not to actually pay him because there were concerns about him. But Kyle was the one that went to bat for him. Kyle was the one that didn't want to trade him. Kyle wanted to keep him. Yeah, you put all this together. This is a young person who's just wildly immature and a little bit off. And I'm not suggesting that the 49ers are completely without any culpability in all of this. I'm not. But they're the ones that aren't talking. He is. And we're learning a little bit about his overall makeup with every passing video and with every video that comes from people not only in his camp, but people like Richard Sherman who just are familiar with this situation. We had Dante Whitner on. Whitner was the first one who suggested, this is 2 months ago now, he came on the show. He does a 49ers podcast. He played for the 49ers. And he's the one that suggested this is unprecedented and one of the dumbest things he's ever seen a player do in terms of losing that kind of money through voided guarantees, and that he needed to get his act together. And then Hushmanzada, who was essentially a guy that was very close to him and his personal mentor and coach, he's turned on him publicly. Is there anybody publicly that's in the realm of his sphere that has actually supported him?
LaShawn McCoy. That's about it.
That means nothing to me.
Yeah.
He's missing a few marbles too. McCoy. Some of the things, I mean, he is tell me what LaShawn McCoy said. I'm sure he has blamed everything on the 49ers, and Aiyuk is this brilliant strategy, this is a brilliant strategy for Aiyuk to get back in the league and get a big contract.
You pretty much got it boiled right down to a T, but let me see if I can grab the audio here real quick. Here it is.
I ain't gonna lie, he's became my favorite wide receiver. Yeah, yup. I like it, man. Hey, it's time to fight back. Don't let these ownerships, man, just try to own you. Them days is over with.
That's more or less the genesis of the entire argument.
Own you for. Meantime, he's mocking ownership for giving him $50 million because they're so stupid. I mean, was LaShawn McCoy listening to any of these videos? I mean, he's literally mocking them for how easy they were to fleece for $50 million. I'm out. I mean, if they decide to do it, I'm going to trust them because obviously they have a lot more information. Based on what we have witnessed here over the last 2 weeks, Richard Sherman adding it all up. I mean, there is like legitimately outside of LaShawn McCoy, no support for him. No support for him. Now, have some people said, look, the 49ers, I'm not taking them off the hook either. Yes, like our guy Grant Cohn. Grant Cohn likes Brandon Aiyuk, but even said the behavior's been erratic and not the right way to go. But he also blames the 49ers for trying to trade him after the injury, which I would say is pretty low. But it sounds like all of this started before, when he didn't get targeted enough. Hey, bitch and complain. Tell them how you feel, face to face. Don't ever avoid me with just 6 targets in a Super Bowl game when I've been your best wide receiver all year. Don't do that. But instead, he's literally cost himself $30 to $40 million in guaranteed money. And we'll find out if anybody actually is interested in signing him. As of yesterday, I was all in on they're going to sign him. And I felt that way as a strong lean for a while. The Schefter stuff yesterday, saying that, talking to people around the league, they don't understand what he's doing and he's not helping his cause. Along with the latest video, Richard Sherman, maybe it's just I'm getting exhausted with this dude, but he's not likable. Not that it matters if he can do it on Sundays, but there's a part of this that has me believing he has talked his way social media-wise out of the league. And then I think to myself, somebody with that level of talent, if they're healthy, is never going to be out of the league. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Brandon Aiyuk, where do you stand on Aiyuk today? Do you want him or not? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.